Opening week of Part 2 continues for the Heroes Global Championship. Over in Europe, Team Dignitas took off with a strong 3-0 victory. Today we'll see if the top team in North America, Tempo Storm, can do the same. Dread? We had yesterday some fun strategies and, dare I say, some wild ones.
Yeah, we did, and I think it's going to continue through opening week. It's just a general trend. The consensus of the meta doesn't really stand until teams get to practice against one another for a long period of time, so it's not going to stop now.
Yeah, and just from those two matches, the standings have changed up quite a bit here in North America. Gale Force Esports, for instance, their victory over Team 8 propelled Tempo Storm to the top spot for now. We'll see if they can get a victory over No tomorrow just to cement that a little bit more. B-Step hasn't fallen to Superstars yet, but Naventic starts their momentous climb up with one victory over B-Step. We'll see if they're able to do so later on. And this is a chance for Superstars, Dread, to prove that they belong in the upper echelon of NA teams along with the rest.
Yeah, it's going to be the start of, the redemption for this team, Superstars, if they really want to claim themselves as one of the top teams in the North American scene.
As for what's going to be going on today and what has already happened, we had a near flawless victory, 3-1 for Synergy over B-Genius in Europe, as well as that 3-0 victory for Team Dignitas. In North America, we are going to be ending today with the NA Giants taking on No tomorrow, but we get started today with the Canadian rivalry between Team Freedom and Superstars. So, Dread, this is a match that people should be looking out for, especially because both of these teams showed so many changes throughout Part 1.
Yeah, especially with Superstars. It was such a unique story for them, going from a position to where it almost seemed like they had no opportunity to win a game if they ever fell behind. And then halfway through, it seemed like they started to figure it out and became far better at making decisions when behind, to the point where not only were they keeping in games where they were down a level, they were starting to win some of them.
Yeah, and Team Freedom was so interesting to see. They were the ostensible dark horse. They talked about how they believed they would be the dark horse, started the climb, beat Gale Force Esports, but then ended up losing, the only team to lose to No tomorrow. So very inconsistent team. Before we get more into this match, let's hear from the teams themselves.
I believe my team's X factor is our drafting. We have some really wacky drafts. Stray has been traditionally known in his entire Heroes career for having some offbeat or kind of drafts that catch people off guard, and we're really looking forward to trying to capitalize on that or use that. Of course you don't want to use it every time, but to throw people off or to keep them thinking.
I think the best thing that Superstars can do to beat us is probably camp our solo lane and then push to win in the early stages of the game. Otherwise they're going to lose quick.
What makes our team unique is our draft and what we can bring to the table, because I think that the scariest thing about us is our unpredictability.
Superstars for me is probably the most improved team of NA HGC. What you talked about, how they started out, they could not win a game if they got behind. And then they got to the point, it was the match versus Naventic. They got very behind and they took the one fight that they possibly could as soon as they hit 13. And honestly, they could have very easily been in the 4th place position in standings. It all came down to the match versus B-Step and this very difficult core loss. And Superstars were even playing with a sub at this match, and it went all the way to Game 5, a 2% core.
It's a terrible position to find yourself in, but it's one that we've seen more frequently than maybe you would kind of expect. But Superstars have to have the strength to be able to overcome that, and it seems like they did show the signs. But yeah, they are very close in this middle ground area to where if they do perform poorly here in part number 2, it is possible they could move down even to Crucible range.
Yes, and Team Freedom is not out of that range either, being in the bottom 3 teams so far. I know, like with No tomorrow, some of the dorm teams we talked to were eyeing their spot hungrily. Interesting that they all felt like Team Naventic would, start to rise, which we've already started to see a bit of, but Team Freedom is in the same position. They really do not want to be possibly fighting for their spot in HGC by the end of this part.
Yeah, and I'm excited probably more for Freedom and getting to see them in part 2 than Superstars. Superstars showed the positive signs of development in part 1, and Freedom kind of didn't. Again, the roller coaster of success that they kind of had is now a moment where I feel like we truly get to see the colors of this team, because we knew them to be kind of solo queue warriors. A lot of them were known for their, individual MMRs and then kind of going together as a group. So now it's time to see, are they truly the competitors, or will they crumble under the pressure?
A little bit of that for me, or a lot of it, comes down to drafting. They had a lot of favored picks that have been changed, like Tychus, like Ragnaros. Let's head into our Battleground pool for the Heroes Global Championship and get things started. Superstars with a ban on Curse Hollow. Team Freedom is going to ban Tomb of the Spider Queen. So then the first Battleground picked by Team Freedom is going to be Battlefield of Eternity. Seems to be a highly favored Battleground quite a lot at the start of this part.
Yeah, it's maybe going to be a staple, for the North American scene. It's actually really fun to study when regions prioritize specific maps.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't even see a trend and justification for that. I think it literally comes down to a practice situation, to where one team feels like, well, this guy is this good on this map, so we want to practice it this much more to try and catch up to the best teams in North America on it. And then suddenly, Battlefield of Eternity, or whatever the map is at that point in time, rise to the top. And suddenly we see it in every single series. It's really unique to see it. And it's a regional trend, not just a world thing. Everybody cycles through on maps.
This has been a favorite of Team Freedom in the past, but not the best record on it, 2-4 so far. It's not been as highly favored for Superstars. Superstars are going to ban Zarya and a quick follow-up of Tassadar, very standard thus far.
So do we see the Lucio, Malfurion, or Arthas out of Superstars? Also, we talked about, or Morse Ray got to speak about the unpredictability that Superstars really can bring to the table. We've seen a lot of Cho'Gall bust out recently in other parts of the world, and now I'm beginning to wonder if they're going to be a team that follows suit.
Yeah, you can never know what types of strategies Superstars plans to bring to a Battleground, especially when we start looking at other Battlegrounds like Braxis, but even Battlefield of Eternity. So far, they've played some Artanis, some Zul'jin, a lot of Valla. Valla's been, in fact, their highest picked hero in Part 1, though that may change. With a pretty good win rate to boot from that. And then even some Alarak and Tyrande play from Superstars on Battlefield.
I do like the Li Ming pickup here for Freedom, but I've got to note that ETC seems higher priority than I expected. He's a hero that has been nerfed since we saw in Part 1. This is going to be one of his better Battlegrounds. If ETC had one, I'd probably say it's Battlefield of Eternity. But I did not expect to see him even here this high into a draft with so many other warriors available. They took that over everything but Zarya, and that's kind of a hard example to just be like but Zarya because she's banned so frequently.
Part of that for me seems comfort. It was Zugrug's favorite hero to play. He also has those quick stuns to try to lock someone down once the stuns of Immortals come out, and then from there, Li Ming can be the one to follow up. I love the Anubarak pick, though, for Superstars. Shrey has always been one that you never know if he wants to bust out as a Anubarak, and he is so difficult to play Li Ming against, especially if Freedom are hoping to try to get constant poke on the Immortals. He can soak that up, and then also his Beetles can soak up a lot of those skill shots and really mess with the plans of Freedom. Yeah,
and so this hover for Freedom in the draft over the Arthas is a strong indicator that they are more concerned about playing offensively on the race than they are on a defensive, because Arthas would be a really good double warrior defensive strategy on the side of Freedom. So they're already showing their thought process of what they want to make happen in this draft just purely off of that one ban, and it's a proper response on the side of Superstars. The Greymane is, a legend. The double reset between Li Ming and Greymane potentially would go for the throw-up and then complementing the race and also being very offensive. So heads-up adjustment on the draft for Superstars so far. I am afraid already that Freedom's going to be clutching. It's just going to be clutching to their comforts. Not even so much the Artanis. It's just way too much dependency on that. I think this next rotation is going to be an indicator.
It is.
Of what Freedom has been doing in their downtime.
This entire break. Is it Tychus? That's been another big comfort pick for them. They're one of the most comfort pick-oriented teams that we have, I would say. Whereas Superstars has that flexibility. They have shown it quite a lot, even throughout Part 1. So does it happen that we see the signature Artanis, or maybe a Ragnaros from Freedom, Tychus too? What will be the pick?
I wouldn't mind a Ragnaros. I do think on two-lane maps, I still really enjoy what Ragnaros can bring post-second ban phase, as where I currently feel like he kind of belongs. There's a Lucio, not surprising, considering the Malfurion already picked up, and there's going to be a Tychus. I still think those are fine. Those I would not lean towards comfort, right? It's a more of an objective value of those heroes. So for now, outside of the ETC pick, nothing really too crazy coming out from Freedom.
We are waiting on probably, most likely, Goku's pick here and Hosty, although both Faye and Hosty sometimes play Vala, just depending on who needs to flex into which position. I'm wondering if they're going to...
What is it? What's the thought? My first glance is I want to see another melee, another warrior specifically, a Nubarak in the solo, especially on maps where he doesn't really work with the objective to be able to be self-sustaining like Infernal Shrines. He needs somebody else with him. Arthas was one of the best pairings for that, so really heads up. Ban already talked about that.
What about Goku's Dahaka?
You could, and we've seen that global meta kind of consume North America after day one, so I think that is a really, solid suggestion on where they might move. Fall set, so that's going to match it. And then the Valera.
First Valera of this part.
So going to be very, interesting. The Nubarak solo on his own into the Tychus, I feel like is going to be very easy to be punished on the side of Freedom. But the Superstars have now, with the Valera and having the fall set, in a position to really be able to concentrate on the macro game. I will say I would have preferred a Zeratul if you're going to go into the stealth department here over the Valera. It just, in a lot of cases, Valera does feel like an inferior Zeratul. She does do a few things a bit better, less skilled shot dependent.
Like what, yeah.
And very easy follow-up. You aren't risking a skill shot. It's just, I stealth the follow-ups there, I instantly can burst in, and then I can pull away afterwards.
Yeah, it seems like with a Nubarak and Malfurion, the idea is if she can get in and get started, she can either be a follow-up if a burrow happens, or vice versa if she finds the right pick.
And the reason why I lean more towards the Zeratul there is because a Nubarak as a solo warrior will struggle, and we saw that how good the pause button that Void Prison is to be able to buy time to allow a Nubarak to really kind of thrive and not die. Arthas is another example of a hero who, if you give him enough moments, once he gets under a lot of pressure, his self-sustain is enough to really change the tide of a battle here. But the last pick, Artanis, again, sticking a bit more to the comfort, but still offensive. After seeing this, it is a weird strategy to suggest, but I almost feel like the Arthas with the Artanis and doing a double defensive with the Artanis 1-4 split would have been really neat. I can see the thought process that Freedom has here, but I feel like I would have liked to see Arthas somewhere from one of these two teams rather than making it to the second ban phase.
Yeah, it's all comforts for Freedom. That's what I see here.
Yes, yeah.
Which is not... How did it work out yesterday? I forget. We had a team playing solely with their comforts. I feel like it wasn't the greatest.
Yeah, across the board, typically, if you're relying so heavily on your comforts, especially after how many patches have come in, it's not going to work out that well. The only person that had a strange priority, but now rethinking it, that I really enjoyed it, was Naventic and Tychus. Tychus was very, very high, but into this double warrior, double support meta, I think it actually trades very, very well into that.
But Freedom did go for a Lucio, so they have made some adjustments and understanding of how the current meta is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I would be very scared if they would neglect Lucio as a support, just purely off of comfort.
Well, we'll see if the comforts of Freedom can reign supreme, or if Superstars will be able to take game number 1 on Battlefield of Eternity. We'll see you there.
And so on the left-hand side here is Team Freedom, where Collusion is on the Lucio, Zugrug on ETC, Insomnia, as always, going to be on an Artanis. Dansky playing the Tychus here, and last for Team Freedom is going to be Nasmus on the Li Ming.
You know, we talk a lot about comforts for Freedom, but there are quite a few on Superstars too. Iakono is going to be playing Malfurion. We have a Nubarak played by Srey. We know that he's busted out the bug every once in a while. Faye's playing Hervala once again. Goku's playing Valera. We've seen that before, but the biggest comfort for me, obviously, is going to be Hosty's Falstad.
Yeah, for a little bit of a history lesson on why you're kind of referring to a Nubarak as Srey's comfort is obviously now that a Nubarak has risen in power as a warrior, Srey was playing a Nubarak when it wasn't cool, is the best way to put it.
He is the Anub hipster.
Yeah, the minute that the original rework came in, that Nubarak wasn't considered to be a top-tier warrior, a premier warrior, he was still playing it. So it's just, a bit of a background story as to why we feel that is such a comfort here for Srey and the members of Superstars.
Heroes History with Dread 101. Professor Dreadnought, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Gotta qualify you correctly. Hungering Arrow build for Faye and Vala at level 1, so having Monster Hunter is going to help a lot with the race. Didn't have the best win rate on Battlefield of Eternity in part 1, but generally that was sort of the counter. If one side gets Leeming, the other side was going to try to get Falstad, and having Gathering Storm from Falstad to be able to help out with that should help. Not going to be Moonburn though for Malfurion, picking up Shando's Clarity, so favoring being able to give mana to those damage dealers instead of throwing out additional damage of his own.
It's putting a lot on Valla, a lot of pressure onto Q-Build Valla. I feel like with that level 1 on Malfurion, the safe route is to move into the scouting drone just to get a bit more reveal of the rotations on the side of Freedom. Moonburn is, you know, without the laning that big of a deal, he doesn't do that much damage to the Immortals. So moving into this says, I have a caster that I really want to enable and be able to benefit this race. And Valla is the first one that comes to mind there, just because Falstad's decent, but, you know, it's not the same as a Q-Build Valla.
Right. So we'll probably see continued focus on that build, at least with repeating arrow to up level 7. But we'll see for there. Goku's diving in a little bit, seeing if he can get the first blood from the game, as the first Immortals are spawning and teams are setting up to try to get to the halfway point first, knowing that the next spawn will be defensive.
Yeah, and so here is a bit of the 1-4 split we were talking about that we expected to see from Freedom. Based on the fact that they have the Artanis isolated from everyone else, but Artanis isn't trading well into the false head yet. It's all going to be about the race here, as a little bit of poke coming out for Superstars. Power Slide comes out, but nothing to be gained, at least for now.
Teams taking this very passively, potentially waiting for level 4 and then trying to make a collapse. In that regard, Team Freedom is closer, with ETC making a rotation down and having Artanis up on top. That'll happen very, very close, but Superstars are right behind.
Another conversation point about the Valeera versus the Zeratul is Zeratul comes online at 4. He spikes at every point past 4, whereas Valeera doesn't until she hits a minimum 7, and then not really that great actually until the 13 mark. The dash out, Insomnia. Does he have the shielding? No, he doesn't. That is going to be the first kill here for Superstars, as Goku and friends look for a small initiation in the skirmish.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is getting assassinated at 7 and then level 13 death from above to be able to get started and jump in even a little bit faster. Goku's gone into vanish mode, so potentially trying to get the jump along with Stray. Hosty's there too. Goku dives in. Zugberg maybe getting taken out. He has a power slide to go away, but here comes Stray with the follow.
Oh, but not enough damage. The Beatles here are not going to be attracted onto ETC either, so they do zone them away to kick off the halftime show, but not as much kill potential as we are, you know, Superstars wanted to see out of that Valeera. But very good follow-up coming out from Goku. I was just criticizing the coming online of a 7 in the 13, but he did a very good job being able to get in that melee range to follow up the stun after a new Barak.
With Initiative too, she has the potential of getting the more combo points quickly to try to be able to eviscerate and make sure that she can have the follow-up along with a new Barak to get kills.
Yeah, it's like once she hits 4, she's very good out of once she gets the follow-up or the opening, and then she can get a lot of bursts, but it's how easy it is to be able to identify where she is while she's trying to move on top of you, because you don't have the mobility that you have on that Zeratul until you end up hitting that 7 and then the 13 follow-up. Right. So it's not that it's, you know, the end of the world style pick, it's just whether or not it fits their play style, and so far Superstars is really showing that it was worth it here, as they have not only the first Immortal taking out this front wall and a bit of damage onto the fort, excuse me, while they get a 7 talent tier spike over Freedom soon.
It's almost there, but Team Freedom clear up the Immortal. Here comes a flight from Hosty, but Insomnia is playing very passively, patient, knowing that when you're playing against a global hero, you always have to be very careful about how you are in the lane, not going too far out. So nice plays from Insomnia. We'll see if Team Freedom recognizes that Superstars are going for this Kajo camp. May just try to make the rotation down and get the bottom one to counter.
We once again, on Battlefield of Eternity here in North America, see the old school Falstad build too, going into Gathering Storm at 1, Boomerang at 7, and then going for the shielding on 4. It will allow him to trade better into the Artanis and the 1v1. Anytime you drop that W, it's such a beautiful 1v1 tool. And it makes sense on the map purely just based on the fact that, you know, Season Markman is probably never going to get really completed based on the lack of laning on Battlefield of Eternity.
Everything else across the board, very standard. There is Assassinate for Valeera. Both teams just waiting it out until they can get to the next Immortal phase. The Khazra camp really putting the hurt on the towers here in the top lane, though. That's handy for Superstars to further their experience advantage that they've already gotten so far over Freedom.
Yeah, and Zugrug at best can set up a swap, but they don't have enough damage between the two here. As long as the W stays on the entire time. Barrel roll was not interrupted. Yeah, it's just at best, Zugrug can stun, leading into the God swap, pulling them all the way back, and then maybe the turret would have enough damage to get kills. It's just the, the struggle of having a double warrior gank. The CC there, but the damage not to back it up. Both teams getting their respective Shaman camps as we do have the second Immortal phase coming up.
Yeah, both sides a little slow to those rotations, so nobody in position quite yet to fully damage the Immortals, but Falstad and Goku even Faye, so the right members at least of Superstars were here in Faye and in Hosty to get some of the damage done to Illyrian, the Blue Immortals health bar.
I really like that zoning route there from Iacona to get Peel. Nothing would have been gained of it either way, but it's still you never totally know where your opponents are, so it's just really nice that anytime you can get a zoning off of a choke, off of an attempt of initiation from Freedom. It's just nice small plays, always trying to appreciate what the supports bring to the battlefield. Goku, though, you see him flanking around there, looking for a play. If anybody can open up, he will do it himself. Dodges Zugrug's power side as well. And that leads to Superstars actually getting the advantage here on the second Immortal.
Nasmus looked pretty tasty, did teleport out. That'll get a little easier too, as once he gets Illusionist, probably at 13. There's the swap. Immortal's dead even so far in the health bars.
We do see another 1-4 split attempt, but Goku constantly abusing the fact that he has that stealth. Stray gets the burrow out. Trying to abuse the fact that they can't keep track of the Valera and get a gank onto Insomnia or any isolated target at that point, but they are not making it happen yet. 10 is closing in, but it won't be here at the rate at which Freedom is getting on top of this, but Superstars doesn't care. They're going to try and initiate. Collusion takes the damage. Faye not connecting the Q, though. He will be able to skate away with his life. And the Immortal not finished there for Freedom. Worst case scenario, all they wanted to do was make sure that they all in that before the 10 hit. Now Superstars has an opportunity to zone off. It's going to be rough at 550 health. You pretty much can look at that thing and it's going to die. And Zugrug is the noble sacrifice.
Especially versus Leeming too. Zugrug will be sacrificed, Roots and Stray follow up. You could see the power of the bigger they are though on how low Stray's health bar was. Thankfully had Burrow charge to get out, but Freedom in getting this Immortal buy themselves some time to get heroic abilities. They're not facing Superstars with heroic ability advantage and the Immortals, which is always worst case scenario.
Stray is 1 versus 4 right now. The swap lands. He's still got Burrow. Good knockback. He's trying to figure out where he wants to go with it. Over the wall. Stun is there, but doesn't matter. Nasmus gets the reset. Very heads-up play here from Freedom, knowing that Superstars expected them to all match onto the Immortal on bottom and then set up a prime gank there onto Stray.
Falstaff's going to fly up to make sure that he can still soak versus this. Cloak of Shadows for Valera instead of Smoke Bomb too.
I love Cloak of Shadows. I think it's really underestimated, especially after it got some of the buffs here. Gust away, but it's merely buying a bit of time. Will the rotation from Superstars be fast enough? I feel like the answer to that is very much no. Luckily, it's only a 60-second cooldown. Yeah, nobody even from Freedom whatsoever. It's more of actually trying to buy time for the race rather than a rotation. I thought for sure they would look for a collapse. If they get even just, a turret and a half on this bottom front wall, that was a very worth trade. Very heads-up play here from Superstars.
Purifier Beam over Suppression Pulse for Artanis. What do you make of this?
A lot of it is usually focused on anybody who wants to be standing still, but there's nobody on the side of Superstars that I look at, and I feel like I can understand them wanting to stand still in the middle of a team fight. Yeah. So then the best case is just tracking Valera when she stouts.
That's what I was wondering too.
That's the only thing I can really see, because Mouth can ice block it, and Nubarak just, he takes no damage to it. He moves around all the time. Falstad is pretty mobile, and Vala is very mobile, especially a Q build Vala in team fights.
Yeah, this Nubarak build is fully utilizing his spell armor potentials too. He had New Rubian armor to be able to get the extra spell armor at 1, and then Chitinous plating too, just making sure that he has it up. There it is, Purifier Beam following Goku.
Which he is going to be...
He's going to be spotted out, yeah.
He's going to be fine for now. Cleanse is still up for Iacona, so I think he'll be able to get that if the power side comes out. Cloak of Shadow is going to be dropped. Very short cooldown there, so just a safety mechanism as 13's closing in for Superstars. 13 seconds for this third Immortal phase. And things are slowly but surely going in favor of Superstars as they are gaining a lot of control here in this first game. Ooh, Twilight Dream. Not going to get it. That is a big cooldown not to have here in this Immortal phase.
The Roots were great follow-up and Stray too, but using Twilight Dream is kind of rough for Superstars. They at least still almost have a 13 advantage. Team Freedom are trying to take advantage of that cooldown being gone, but Superstars backed out, favoring getting 13, at least for now. Zugrug's going to power slide in, though.
Yeah, Sray has to get the burrow out. Gust is used as well, so now another heroic set used. Locust Swarm was as well. Freedom, this is the best fight they were going to get in a long while. We'll see if Superstars is going to let them have it.
No, Artanis was up at the top.
Yeah, Freedom walked completely away there. There is not going to be a moment where they see Locust Swarm, Twilight Dream, Gust all down on the talent tier as weak as 13 for a long while. So they have roughly 40 seconds here to try and make a play. You see them all going on the defensive, not risking the 1-4 split. Sray?
Yeah, Superstars will just take their camp, and then once they see that Artanis has moved over again, then they can start to throw out the Hungering Arrows. There's one. Start to burst damage down. They see Beleth's health bar dropping, so now Superstars can collapse on this Immortal.
Oh, this follow stun not going to land. Sray ends up gacking out the root onto Zugrug. Beautiful Rain of Vengeance coming out from Faye. And even being down, the closest fight that we thought Freedom was going to be able to get, they end up losing a member.
The stun on Mosh Pit to cancel it was beautifully done too by Superstars, making sure that you couldn't get that two-man Mosh Pit. And now Superstars will clean up the rest of the Immortal. Using Odin, Team Freedom will try to do the same, at least just take the health bar as far down as they can, so the shielding won't be as hard to deal with. But Superstars, so far, maintaining constant control. It's not a huge lead, but it's just enough that they carry the momentum.
Yeah, and they're going to try and do that right here with Sray. Really nice flank. Beautiful follow-up route there. Twilight Dream's got to be dropped. Goku goes in. Sray locks down the final kill, as that is going to be a member up and not even needing a Hostie. Keep in mind, just now getting the flight in. Locust Swarm's used.
It's a scary spot to fly into, apparently.
Yeah, you're like, are we safe for landing? And they're like, no, not like this, not like this, not like this. Barrels.
You are not cleared. You are not cleared for landing.
He's like, we're out of fuel. Over.
This is your pilot speaking.
We're going to have to take down. But Superstars is still ahead and slowly just, you know, as you brought it up, I think it's a really beautiful way to describe this game. Superstars hasn't made any amazingly flashy plays, but they've done a lot of small things right that add up to the situation that they're in. That's why they're 2 levels up, a talent tier, and what is going to be a keep in a matter of moments. Gust going to be used to ensure it. And look at this. This is the best fight, again, that Freedom's going to see. Otherwise, 16 Spike's going to be hit soon. They realize it. Collusion goes in. Quickly regrets it as he skates right on out.
So I'm looking maybe for a wave of force. Insomnia tries to go in. Stun as you would like to swap. Nicely done from Superstars. They will make this escape. Sinister Strike just to ensure it. There's no fort here, so maybe it's going to be another swap attempt. Cleanse just to ensure it. And Cloak of Shadows, nothing. There is nothing to be done for Freedom to catch
baby.
Superstars.
No, not today. Oh, man. Meanwhile, adding salt to the wound is Hostie, soaking bottom lane that entire time. Not the entire time. That's a little unfair to say, but a majority of it there to get a free lane of experience, make sure his team hits 16, and now they're willing to risk a 5 versus 4, possibly. Sray testing the waters. Goku on the backline. Dansky's completely split. Will he get the kill? No, in fact, that is going to cost Faye her life there. Sound barrier dropped. And there is the Gust to disengage, so Superstars showing that they have kinks in the armor.
Faye was giving vision to allow Goku to jump in, but it was to her demise. And just when Superstars would have liked to get 16. So Freedom have a moment. They need to get back onto the lanes. They've got to soak out bot lane too and keep the top lane as far pushed as they can so that they have time to put damage on the Immortals, but it's still going to be rough for them. They're still 2 levels down with an Immortal phase about to start.
Yeah, and the fact that the death timers are still short enough that Vala is going to be spawning and halfway there to the Immortal before the Immortals are even able to be damaged is just not good for Freedom. They got a kill, but it didn't really get them anything but that much closer to 16, but they're still miles and miles away. Superstar still full control here in the very first game. Man, Freedom is risking a lot here by this 1-4 split. The odds of, like, honestly, Superstars could just gust them off of this and all engage. They aren't even afraid. They're going to take them on top of the Immortal, saying even having that, you know, extra member that is the Immortal is not going to scare them away from such a huge power spike on 16.
I was terrified as Goku started dun 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 dun. No kills just yet, but with exposed armor, Valera is ramping up to be a terror machine versus the soft members, the squishy members of Team Freedom. Once Lucio gets 16, that will help a lot. He's got sound barrier too, can try to sustain through that.
Yeah, it will. It will be able to deal with the damage and help sustain everyone, but
There's Neo still coding too for
That-
Tychus to help.
that's a good point. So Tychus will be, you know, probably part of the reason he was able to survive the last engage where we saw Valera try and isolate. Talking about that, beautiful Cloak of Shadows will allow Goku to get out after his first initiation, kind of dropping the taunt, gonna re-stealth up. Got to keep eyes on him as he's gonna be looking for any target to split up here. Falstad, though, has got pressure on the bottom keep, so even though this dance looks like it's okay for Freedom, Hosty is making it worthwhile for Superstars.
Artanis shows and Goku goes in, Cloak of Shadows to avoid the stun, and backs right on out. Constant pressure, constant damage on the members of Team Freedom who are here until Artanis can get back. And the poking continues. Finally, Freedom has to disengage, has to give up the Immortal, and this will be a very strong Immortal marching forward to Team Freedom's final keep.
Yeah, Freedom right now, it might be all she wrote for them in this game. If even 2 kills happen, I think is about how much it would take at a 17-minute Immortal to where this amount of shielding, Superstars just ends up winning the game. They don't have very good defensive tools. Only having, I guess, you know, they have a Tychus and a Lee Ming, so they have some of the best to rid of the shielding. Goku moves aside to not get the accidental body block.
Yeah.
If you're a stealth target and you're hiding in shrub like that, always move to the side like
Yes.
Goku just said. Because you'll body block them. Oh! You'll body block them and they'll instantly see you. So just that's a small play there, but this Immortal moving in, looking to break the base of Freedom.
Superstars ready to dive. Goku is always looking for the prime targets. Srey ready to follow up in an instant. Icon is in the back, no 20, no Volt to be able to jump in and follow with the Twilight Dream.
It's still a very healthy Immortal though, and
Yes.
look at the health bars on the side of Freedom. That's low. They realize that, drop the sound barrier, get the swap. Knocks Insomnia a bit farther. Gust is used. Mosh ends up landing onto one immediately.
Amazing!
Interrupted there by Faye with that Rain of Vengeance, and with 1-for-1 trade, the Immortal ridding of the shields onto the core. More are falling now for Freedom. It looks like Superstars has this one in the bag. They are going to be able to convincingly take game 1 here over Freedom.
Superstars doing what we know them to do. Just clean, solid play when they're ahead.
What we know, oh, you're right, that's all versions of Superstars. I was going to say what we know them to do at the first part of part
Right.
1. But yeah, whenever they got ahead, they were very clean. They were. So does Freedom have the tools to kind of pressure them, put their backs against the wall, and do we still see, you know, the revised, renewed version of Superstars that we managed to see on the later parts of part 1?
So what was it exactly that you felt did not work out for Freedom? A lot of it seemed to me to be the soaking was working out a lot better for Superstars.
So, okay, so I talked about the Arthas, right? On the defensive side and what Arthas can provide there. They picked ETC to be defensive in a 1-4 split, but if you're going to be in a 1-4 split in defensive, I would always rather see the Arthas, because anybody who overextends, your chase potential is that much greater. Shout out to Goku, though, for the Cloak of Shadows, because he made what ETC's good at on that map be very poor, never enabling the Immortal to get a follow-up stun. But I just would have liked to see their drafting said we weren't going to move into a 1-4 and be defensive, and then they proceeded to draft later after the second ban phase into we're going to run the 1-4, and it didn't seem like it was going to work out because the macro play sitting on the side of Superstars with their draft, but then it was really, I don't know a word to express it really. Kind of just they say something one time with their picks, and then they go a different direction in the later part, and they go, wait, no, we mess up. We're going to the first thought.
Yeah, and if you're not having Artanis there for the defense too, there's no fear of swaps on top of the points too with a follow-up of ETC. Artanis was always gone, and then everyone else felt very free to try to go after some of the squishy members of Team Freedom.
And we've always known that Artanis, that's one of the few maps he can thrive in situations.
Definitely.
But it's still not a, you won the video game type pick. If it was, he would be first pick fan, like, across the board. It's just kind of a once in a while it can work out in very niche situations, and it does feel like Freedom is more comfortable with their comfort picks than they are worried about, what is the objective, most powerful draft.
We'll see what kind of adjustments are made right after this break as we head into game number 2.
The demon Asmodan had his ultimate victory within reach, until the opposing heroes dealt him a devastating defeat. Asmodan went back to the drawing board and rediscovered his love of the game. The Lord of Sin became the Lord of the Slam. house. Let's see if you've got game. Oh, there it is. Dude, welcome to my jam.
You know, I've been in more scrapes and adventures than I can count. That being said, I've never seen anything like this.
Hail, hero.
Is that a frog in a bubble? Oh gosh, they are